Alright, so this is the second video from Unit 11, which is our Rational Applications unit. So in this second video, we're going to only discuss problems that involve work. So these people, or these items, not necessarily people, these things are either going to be working together to complete a task or working against each other to complete a task. I'll get into more of the difference later, but I think you'll be able to see it. All right, so there's our formula to the left. You don't really have to get bogged down in the formula. So what we're going to have here is multiple people or things working together to finish a task. So if you notice in my formula right here, I have plus or minus. So if the individuals are working together or with each other to complete a task, we're going to add our rates together. If they are working against each other, we will actually be subtracting the rates because one person will be completing the job while the other person is erasing their work, basically. We'll see one of those at the end. So, in this problem, we have Jamie can paint a room in 7.5 hours, Priya takes 5 hours, and Anton takes 6 hours if each of them work alone. How long would it take to paint the same room if they all three work together? So what it's given me is how long it takes each individual to paint one room by themselves. And it's asking me if instead of all painting the room by themselves, what if they all three show up and we paint the room together? So the way this works is since it's rate, you have your jobs, which jobs is always going to be 1. So if you want to write in your notes, change that to a 1, you can. Because I'm not going to ask you if Jamie paints 6 rooms in 4 hours and Priya paints 4 rooms in 3 hours. We're not going to get that complicated. So jobs is always going to be 1. So in this example, Jamie is painting 1 room, and it takes her 7.5 hours to finish that room. Priya paints a room, and it takes her 5 hours to complete the room. And last we got Anton, who takes 6 hours to paint the same room. What it's asking me is how long would it take these 3 people to finish if they all work together. So they're still painting the same room, but I want to know how long is the total time. Well, in algebra, if I don't know something, I don't know this total time. So I'm just going to call it x. It's my unknown variable. I don't know what it is, so I'm just going to call it x, and then when I figure it out, we'll end up with x equals at the end. All right, so here, I know sometimes we cross multiply, but here we can only cross multiply if we've got 2 things. Here we've got 4 that we're solving, so cross multiply is not going to be an option. So I have to multiply by my least common denominator. And I've showed y'all a little shortcut sometimes for least common denominator, but for the sake of the video, I'm just going to do what I think is the easiest to understand. So in the first fraction, I need a 7.5 to cancel out 7.5. I need a 5 to cancel out the 5. I need a 6 to cancel out the 6. And I need an x to cancel out the x. So it's the minimum necessary, even though that's technically not the minimum, but it's what's necessary to completely eliminate all my denominators. So this is going to take me forever to write, but I'm going to add the least common denominator on top of all 3 fractions. And I put the LCD in red so you know that I'm adding it to the equation. Okay, so 7.5 goes away, 5 goes away, 6 goes away, and x goes away. So now I'm left with 30x plus 45x plus 37.5x equals 225. And then over here, when I add all these up, I get 112.5x equals 225. We divide, and we get x equals 2. And remember, don't get lost in all the algebra. So x equals 2, if we go back to the original, we were solving for the total time that it takes these three people to finish a room. So it takes them 2 hours to finish. So here we're talking about a roofer. So an experienced roofer can work twice as fast as his assistant. Working together, they can shingle a new section of roof in 4 hours. How long would it take the experienced roofer, working alone, to complete the same job? So again, we've got two people that are working together, so we're going to add it together. Now, the only time it gives me is 4 hours. And it says if they work together, they can shingle in 4 hours. So working together, that's my total time. So if me and my assistant, because of course in this scenario I would be the boss. So if me and my assistant work together to finish the roof, it only takes us 4 hours. What I don't know is I have no information about their individual times other than the assistant takes twice as long as the experienced roofer. So let's just say that the experienced roofer finishes the roof in X hours. I don't know how long he takes. I just know that he's going to take X hours. So if the boss takes X hours and the assistant takes twice as long, the assistant will take 2 times the boss's time to complete the same job. So if the boss takes 5 hours, the assistant will take 10 hours. If the boss takes 10 hours, the assistant will take 20 hours. So however long the boss takes, in this case X, the assistant will be double that. So we're just going to call it 2X. And then again, we need our LCD. So we need a 2, a 4, and an X. I know that we have an X and a 2X, but you don't need to double do the X. You don't need to do the X twice. Doing it twice will do nothing but create a quadratic, which will be a nightmare. As long as I have X at least once, X is going to cancel in both of my fractions, which is what I want. So again, we write my LCD on every fraction. So 2, 4, and X plus 2, 4, and X equals 2, 4, and X. So now the X cancels, the 2 and the X cancel, and the 4 cancel. So I had fractions, but multiplying by my LCD left me with something I think I can handle. So once we got rid of the denominators, we're just left with 8 plus 4 equals 2X, which gives me 12 equals 2X, which means X equals 6. And again, my X was the experienced person. And it doesn't ask me to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and say how long it takes both of them. So I said X was how long it took the boss to finish. So the boss takes 6 hours. The assistant takes twice as long. So if the boss finishes in 6 hours, the assistant is going to take 12 hours. The actual question asked only for the experience, so technically I only needed what I highlighted, but it's a good habit to get into to answer for both people. And then after you decide both people individually, then you can go back and say, oh, let me look at what the question actually asked me. So we have one more. I'll try to be quick. I've got to set up this. So in your head, if you're visualizing it, you can close your eyes. So we're in like Cinemark Roanoke, so we're at the movie theater, and they've got the big popcorn machine, like the real popcorn machine. This isn't like microwave popcorn. And when I'm filling up this popcorn container, it takes me 12 minutes to fill this container up with popcorn. But there's also this little release flap at the bottom of the container so we can throw away all of our old popcorn at the end of the night. Hopefully they throw it away at least. So if that release flap is open, I can empty the whole tank. It takes me 20 minutes to empty the popcorn container once I open that flap. What it's asking me is if I'm popping popcorn while the release is open. So if I'm popping popcorn while the door is open, how long will it take me to fill it up? So you may say, why are you trying to pop popcorn with the door open? Well, let's just say that, you know, the guy on the shift before you accidentally left the door open, and you know, being such the hard worker you are, as soon as you walk in, you start popping popcorn. You just weren't paying too close of attention that the flap was open at the bottom, so accidents happen, I guess. I can fill up the container. If I'm popping popcorn, it takes me 12 minutes to fill the container. If my release flap is open, it takes me 20 minutes to empty the container. And what I don't know is the total time. It asks me, how long will it take to fill the container if both of these things are working at the same time? Okay, well, if I fill it up at the same time that I'm dumping it out. So this first rate, this 1/12, is filling the container at a rate of 12 minutes. The 1/20 is emptying the container at a rate of 20 minutes. So since these things are working against each other, one fraction is filling up the popcorn container, one of them is emptying the popcorn container. So since they are working counterproductively or against each other, we're going to subtract the two from each other. Other than that, we solve it the exact same. I'm going to quit with the color coding. But the LCD is 12, 20, and X. So 12, 20, and X need to go on every fraction. So X is gone, 20 is gone, and 12's gone. So I'm just left with 20x minus 12x equals 240, which gives me 8x equals 240, which gives me x equals 30, which means if I show up for my shift and I try to pop popcorn while the flap is open, it will take 30 minutes to fill the container.